Alright, so today I'm going to persuade you guys that violent video games are not the reason that there's an increased amount of violence and bullying in school. People have said that violent video games are to be blamed for school shootings and increases in bullying, that these violent games desensitize players to violence, they reward players for simulating violence, and they teach children that violence is an acceptable way to resolve conflicts. However, according to the procon.org entitled Video Games, sales of video games have more than quadrupled from 1995 to 2008, while the arrest rate for juvenile murders fell 71.9%, and the arrest rate for all juvenile violent crimes declined 49.3% in the same time period. By saying that the violent video games are the reason that there's an increased amount of bullying, it's just really giving it an excuse to what the actual problem is. And video games are not actually the cause. My 9-year-old nephew was bullied on the bus, and the kid told him that he was going to come to his house and hurt his family, and you can't really relate that to anybody playing video games. According to StopBullying.gov, bullying is unwanted aggressive behavior among school-aged children that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. The behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. Bullying includes actions such as making threats, spreading rumors, attacking someone physically or verbally, and excluding them from a group on purpose. To say now that all of a sudden these video games are causing the increased amount of bullying, wouldn't really be accurate, because bullying has been around forever. And it's only now that, because of this technology and the social networking, that you see it more. Instead of one kid bullying one kid, they're videoing it and then they're putting it on Facebook, and so everybody in the world can see it. So given the causes of the bullying, something should be done rather than just trying to put blame on, like video games. So these are some pro-con arguments that do violent video games contribute to youth violence. On the pro side, they say increasing reports of bullying can be partially attributed to the popularity of violent video games. A 2008 study of Grand Theft childhood reported that 60% of middle school-aged boys who played at least one mature-rated game hit or beat up someone, compared to 30. Games often reward players for simulating violence and thus enhance the learning of violent behaviors. Studies suggest that when violence is rewarded in video games, players exhibit increased aggressive behavior compared to players of video games where violence is punished. Another pro argument is that violent video games desensitize players to real-life violence. It is common for victims in video games to disappear off-screen when they're killed, or for players to have multiple lives. In a 2005 study, violent video games exposure has been linked to reduced P300 amplitudes in the brain, which is associated with desensitization to violence and increases in aggressive behavior. On the con side of the argument is violent juvenile crime in the United States has been declining as violent video game popularity has increased. The arrest rate for juvenile murders has fallen 71.9% between 1995 and 2008. The arrest rate for juvenile violent crimes has declined 49.3% in the same period that video game sales have more than quadrupled. Another one is a causal link between violent video games and violent behavior has not been proven. Many studies suffer from design flaws and use unreliable measures of violence and aggression, such as noise blast tests. Thoughts about aggression have been confused with aggressive behavior, and there's a lack of studies that follow children over long periods of time. And lastly, a 2004 U.S. Secret Service review of previous school-based attacks found that 1/8 of attackers exhibited an interest in violent video games, less than the rate of interest attackers showed in violent movies, books, and violence in their own writings. The report did not find a relationship between playing violent video games and school shootings. This is a chart that shows the decline in violent Crime offenses and increases in video sales from 96 to 2004. So you can see that the sale of the video games went up and there was a decline in the violent crime. So basically saying that there isn't a relationship between the two. So therefore, I hope that I have persuaded you to believe that violent video games do not, contribute to the reasons of an increased amount of bullying. And rather than trying to give an excuse for bullying, something should be done about it. Are we at 5 minutes?
Get me out of your dresses. I still get in trouble.
I know you did very well.